Hi, this is Andy. I'm the prop chef here at Two Perspective Studio. I'm going to give you a quick little tutorial here on how to make some realistic food art for the wall. I found several different boards. I believe they're made for wreath attachments and for just hanging on the wall as decorations. You can find these in all different designs. I happened to find some that were food related. This one is blueberries. And I thought, what better little embellishment to put in the middle of this than a blueberry pancake? And hang it on the wall. So you'll have actual food art for your wall. Super cute idea, I think. I have a couple of these signs over here. I'm just going to work on this one right now. And I'm going to show you how I make the pancakes and the blueberries, and then I'll go through some of the assembly instructions. I have some of my Model Magic clay. These come in the 8-ounce, you get 4 8-ounce bags in a big plastic bucket. You can find them in several craft stores, and I believe you can get them online in different places as well. Model Magic is a really good clay to use. It's an air dry clay. Really good for realistic fake food making because if you texture it, it'll hold its shape. I made these waffles a little while ago, and you can see how well they really hold their shape. If you use things like, this is a foam clay, foam clay tends to bounce back a little bit after you texturize it, so sometimes it's not the best thing for realistic food making. However, I do use foam clay for lots of things, including making realistic fake blueberries. This is a navy foam clay. It's very stretchable and pliable. You can find these through several Etsy sellers and on places like Amazon. You can find it. Lots of different names it'll fall under, but it's basically all the same. It's just an air dry foamy clay. Some of them are a little stickier than others. It's a little trial and error with these different brands of clay. I don't buy too much of it, but I do buy certain colors that I use all the time, one of them being navy. It's a little more difficult to find. Not a lot of people carry the navy. If you can't find it, you can always roll tiny little balls about the size of a blueberry. You can roll those out of Model Magic and paint them. I've done it before lots of times. What you're going to do to make a realistic blueberry is you're just going to take something pointy. This is called a needle tool. This is used for clay working. If you have anything like a palette knife, you can use that. Anything with a pointy tip. You could even use the end of a scissor. What you're going to want to do is make that sort of signature hole that a blueberry has. So I'll take my needle tool and I will depress in a line, kind of like that. And then I'll go back in the other direction, but I don't do it right over the top of the other line. I do one to this side and sort of make a T. And then I'll go to the other side and depress that other side out. And then I'll sort of work it sort of like that little flowery pattern that blueberries have as the opening where they, get pulled off of the bush. So it doesn't take but a minute to do these little blueberries. So you just roll out, and they don't all have to be the same size because blueberries are all different sizes. Just don't make them too huge, because it would look funny on your pancakes, I think. So make them sort of realistic size. Also keep in mind that foam clay, which is this navy clay, does have a little bit of shrink when it dries. It's not a big deal because, like I said, blueberries are all different sizes. And you have to be a little gentle, you don't want to squish your berries when you're doing this, so hold the sides gently when you're making your little indentations here. If you squish it, just roll it up and start over. For my sign, I use about 20 23 berries, I believe, in my sign. Let's see what I have here. 5. I have 13, so I'll need to roll out a few more. And you can, you can do this on a plate. You can put glue a little cord onto the back of a plate and have a plate of blueberries up on the wall. What did I say I had? 3, 6, 9, 13. This is 14. 16. 18. 2 more. You see, I'm just rolling these on on my desk. You can roll them on a surface. Just make sure it's a surface that the foam clay does not stick to. That's important because it does stick to some surfaces. If you can do it on a piece of parchment paper, that's perfectly fine. Also, if you get a bag of the foam clay, make sure that you keep it completely sealed with the air pressed out of it because it does dry quickly. So I'm going to put the little indentations in here, and then I'm going to show you how to roll out and texturize your pancake. We will paint it real quick, and then we'll put it on the board. These little crafts don't take any time at all, and like I said, the boards you can find in lots of different food varieties. I have some that have pie sayings on them, and I'll put slices of pie on them. You can probably do several with donuts on them. It's super cute as a gift. Okay, so I have my blueberries. Now I have rolled out, this is probably 2.5 inch balls of Model Magic here that I'm going to use for the pancakes. Now I like to make my pancakes a little bit on the thick side, and I like the way they look when they're stacked. They're a little bit chunkier. You can make yours whatever size you want. I would recommend though that you roll out your portions, and typically you'll do things in 3s. So roll out 3 pretty equal size balls. You can measure them on a food scale if you want to get them exact, but you know, who makes exact pancakes? Either way is fine. So all I do for mine is I flatten it out a little bit, and then I just use my fingers, concentrating mainly in this center section, because I like to leave a little bit of a rim, kind of like a thick pancake when it's cooking in the pan, has that little bit of a rim around it, where the side sort of cooks up. So I try and depict that in my pancake. Now, there's this space right here that I want to fill, but I don't want to cover up the words. So I need to make sure that it's about the right size. I'm not going to worry about this little bit around the edge. The leaves are going to add to the effect of my project, and I'm going to place fake blueberries in place of the ones that are already on there. So this is about the size that I want, so that I don't cover up any of the wording on my sign. So after I get it to the correct size, I'm going to take something flat, like a palette knife. You could use the end of a popsicle stick, anything flat, or your needle tool would work as well. But I'm just going to sort of make some marks on here to depict like the different layers, because pancakes have a lot of baking powder in them. That's what makes them rise. So when they rise, you sort of look on the edges of the pancakes, and sometimes you can see little lines to where it rose and the layers cooked. Almost like a flaky pastry look kind of deal. Pancakes aren't exactly like flaky pastry, but they still do get some cooking lines in the side. So as this is clay, I want it to look as realistic as possible. So I put these little cooking lines in the side of mine. I'm going to do this other one. I just flatten it down almost to where the thickness is that I want it, and then I sort of just stretch it a little bit. I've got an air bubble in there. That's all right. If you have an air bubble, you definitely want to get it out because it can cause a crack when it's drying. I'm going to go ahead and roll this one back into a ball and start over again because it flattened out a little too much. Now, Model Magic also doesn't stick to as many surfaces as foam clay does. So it's, in that respect, slightly easier to work with. It is a lot stiffer. It's a stiffer clay, and you have to condition it quite a bit more than foam clay, about 10 times more. You have to spend at least 5 minutes pulling and stretching the initial bag when you open it. You want to really pull it and stretch it until it's warm and very pliable, and there's no snapping when you pull it. You want it to be like taffy when it stretches. If you don't condition your Model Magic properly and thoroughly, you'll get a lot of cracking in your projects, and you wouldn't want to go through the trouble of making the whole project just to have a bunch of cracks in it. So definitely take the time to do that. So I put those ridges in there like I did the other one. I have some over here along with my waffles that I have already done, and they just need some paint. So I'm going to pull these forward. So I put a base coat, and you can also put your base coat paint in your clay while you're conditioning and kneading the clay. That way you don't have to paint a base coat on. Either way is totally fine. Adding paint to the Model Magic doesn't change the texture or anything. It works perfectly. So that's definitely something that you can do. Either way is fine. My base coat typically consists of a pale yellow. This one is called Naples Yellow. This one is by Meeden, M-E-E-D-E-N. It's got a nice squirt top on it, which I love. Now I'm going to be putting 3 pancakes on each of my boards. I actually have 2 of them. I put a little bit of paint on there. Let me move my board out of the way. And I'm going to get a soft brush. This is a flat brush. It's a 3/4 inch and it's very soft on the tip. I'm going to wet the brush very well. And I'm going to get a paper towel. And dab some of that water off. Now I put the paint right on here because this is just a base coat, and I'm not having to really worry about shading or anything like that. I just want to slather it on pretty well. I'm not going to worry about the bottoms, just a little bit on, just a little bit around the rim, just so that you don't want it to show. So you need to make sure you give it just a little bit of color under there. But I just concentrated on the very top and the sides. And it just takes a little bit of paint for each one. I probably used a little too much. I'm just going to give it a little bit on the bottom. Make sure my sides are completely covered. Now typically I would tell you to wait until your clay dries for 12 to 24 hours before you put any paint on it. In this case, I'm telling you not to do that. And the reason is this. Let me wash my brush off real quick. Go. I'm going to change this glove because I'm going to change colors. So the reason that I'm not telling you to wait for your pancakes to dry is because I want to put them on the board while they're wet and pliable so that they sort of mold to each other the way a stack of pancakes would if you plop it on the plate and they're warm. If you let the clay dry and then you try and stack them, you may get uneven, sort of weird looking space in between each one, and you don't want that. You want it to look pretty realistic. So while these are drying, let's see, I should have probably painted the other ones. These need to really dry a little bit before they get another paint color on it, but I think I can cheat it a little bit. This color is called Raw Sienna. It's sort of a golden brown color. This brand is Liquitex. It's a professional paint color and it's a pretty good one I use quite often. Let me see here. Normally I would hit this with a hairdryer for a minute just to make sure that the paint was dry. But I'm just going to be doing some shading here and there, and I think it'll be okay. So let your paint color dry completely, and then what you're going to do is just take a little bit on the end of that brush and very slowly and carefully start to dab that color around the edge of your pancake. Now, if this doesn't work well, I may have to get my hair dryer and dry this paint, but I think it's going to be okay. Now, I'm not going over it completely. I'm leaving a little bit of that base Naples yellow show underneath in certain areas. And then I'm sort of brushing it lightly to get it to shade around those other areas. I don't want it super dark in any area really. We'll crisp it up here in just a little bit. But this is just sort of a shading layer to give it some color, make it look cooked. And you have to kind of be careful not to squash or misalign your pancake. Now, on the top here, whichever one you want to be the top pancake, you're going to have to give it some shading with a little bit of texture. So, sort of pouncing the brush with some of the paint on it, not everywhere, just here and there, is going to make it look like a nice browned pancake. But you'll only have to do this with one of them because only the top one is going to show. And I'm going to put more paint in certain areas than others to make it look, you know, they get those little crispy edges here and there. You don't want brush strokes, so you want to be careful. And another thing you can do is a makeup sponge to do this, and I may switch to that in just a second to get this a little bit better. These solid makeup sponges are perfect for paint with no brush strokes, especially on edging pieces. You can really make them, and just dot it here and there with the darker color. But you still want to leave a little bit of that brush area just to make it look textured, a little more textured than it was initially. So this is really the only one that I'm going to have to take this kind of care with to make sure that it really looks cooked and golden and lovely. I'm a pancake person, so I like pancakes. My husband likes French toast. I'm a pancake person. So there I have sort of the little cooked areas. It's showing up lighter on my camera than it is in real life here. I don't have my lights on today. See, I'm making those little toasty areas here and there, a little bit on the edges. Alright, I'm going to stop with that one, and then I'm going to put some of the shading on the edges of these other two. Now I'm not going to have to worry about doing the whole top because it's not going to show. Get that on the bottom here. All I have to do is the edges and just a little bit on the top and bottom. And again, I want to preserve some of that yellow color through all of it. And that one's done. That's all I have to do. I don't have to do the top. These makeup sponges save a lot of time. It's great for eliminating the brush strokes. And it makes the shading multi-dimensional, I think. It's like a multi-color dimension kind of thing when you use these sponges. I really like them. Make sure that the bottom of this one is done well enough. And then I think we can move on to some assembly. Just going to get a little bit dark on the couple of places that I want to show up. And I always say, if you're trying to replicate a real food, either get a really good picture in front of you that shows the food the way that you really want to depict it, or if you happen to be making pancakes that morning, save one, don't eat it, bring it in your craft area and use it as your inspiration, and then you'll be able to see and color match, you know, a lot better if you actually have it right in front of you. So that's a little tip that I use. Okay, so I have the 3 pancakes painted. Let me get rid of this again. I change out my gloves quite a bit because I don't like to mix the paints, especially when I'm filming. A lot of times I don't wear gloves and I just take a wet towel and I wash my hand off in between. Okay, so I have my blueberries and I have my 3 pancakes and I have my board. So I'm going to take the board and I'm going to take a little bit of glue. I use a Gorilla Glue Clear. Let's see if I can get the top off here. One-handed. This is Gorilla Glue Clear. I like this one for its strength and overall durability, especially if you're going to hang something on the wall. Now you're going to add a little bit of resin to this, so that'll add strength to it as well. So basically, I put the glue down where I'm going to put the pancake down, and then I'm going to carefully position my pancake and press down a little bit in the middle. And we have number 1 on the board. So I'm going to take pancake number 2 position that one right on the top. Now because this is wet clay, I'm not concerned about putting glue in between the layers. Now if you are concerned that it might come off, you are welcome to glue in between the layers. I don't do that for these because it's number one, wet paint, and number two, wet clay, and they'll usually just meld right together. But it's totally up to you if you want to add a little bit for good measure. And then I'm going to put our third pancake right on the top. Again, press down just a little. Now we've made a little bit of a well. I don't know if you can see that very well, but you can made a little bit because I left the outer parts popped up just a little bit, so there's a well in the top. And oftentimes you'll have that on pancakes. I'm going to press it down just a little bit on the edges because I want some of our fake syrup to run over the sides. I'll be making the fake syrup with some resin. Now I made these yesterday and they are fully dry. This is just 2 little flat squares of Model Magic. I painted them with that same Naples yellow color and I let them dry. I sort of stuck them together like 2 pats of butter and I let them dry. Now I am going to use a little glue on this because they are dry. Just a little bit. I'll make it look like there's some butter right in the center of our pancakes. And then I'm going to start to position our blueberries. Now I'm going to put some here and there just to make it look like you would do for your blueberry pancakes. I'll put some on the top, and then I'll put some actually on the board on the different sides. And I've got a berry right here, so I want to put a fake berry in its place. And like I said, these leaves here don't bother me a bit. I think they're cute, and I'm going to leave them. And then I'm going to position some in the outer corners. I'll put 2 or 3 in the corners just because it's cute. Now you can do as many or as few blueberries as you want, but this is basically what I have. Then I'm going to mix up some resin. Other side out of the way. Now I'll make a second one because I sell my items in my Etsy shop and on my website. So I usually keep these guys in stock. I've been selling them for quite a while. People seem to like them. I have, all I'm going to need is a little bit of resin. So I'm just going to use this 1 ounce little medicine cup. It does have some markings on it. I use this 2-part quick set resin. You can find this in various places. There's lots of equal part A and B epoxy resin is what you'll need. It sets up pretty fast. I'm just going to do probably do about a 1/2 ounce total. So part A, I will just go up to the 1/2 ounce line, or 1/4 ounce line, I guess. I may make a little bit more because I'm going to do that second board. So I'll go ahead and make 1 ounce. You'll probably only need about a 1/2 ounce per board or plate. Let's see, that's right on the 1/2 ounce. That was part A. And then I'll go up to the 1 ounce on part B. Now you'll want to stir this for at least 2 minutes. A little bit more. There we go. So get a popsicle stick or something disposable, or you can use a silicone stick if you want to reuse it. And you'll want to gently stir this for about 2 minutes. And after the 2 minutes, you're going to want to add an alcohol ink colorant. For maple syrup purposes, I use a color called Caramel from Ranger Ink. There's various light browns and golden colors available in alcohol inks. You can just find the one that suits you the best. You can also mix colors of alcohol ink to make a new color. Just make sure that you're using something that is translucent. Alcohol inks can come in translucent and opaque. So make sure that you don't use an opaque coloring because maple syrup is see-through. So it's been about 20 minutes. I have the board set up. I went ahead and set up the second board so that I can use all the resin at one time. The resin has begun to thicken pretty well here. So I think we can go ahead and start to put some of this on. I'm going to grab a plastic spoon. To put this on with. And I'm just going to take a little bit at a time and be pretty careful with my placement. Now this is a nice rich maple syrup color. You could make it a blueberry syrup if you so desire. Either one is fine. I'm going to put just a little drizzle on my berries to the sides, and I'm going to make sure that I drizzle a little bit down onto the board so it looks like the maple syrup is sort of running off the pancake. It'll also ensure that these berries on here are stuck, because once resin is stuck, it's on there and it's not coming off. So for something hanging on a wall, this is the perfect thing to use to make sure that it won't ever come off. It won't fall down on anyone. And I'm just taking my time, a little bit at a time, making sure I have lots of drips to the side. And that it looks natural. Just going to put a little bit here, and a little bit here. I don't want to put so much that it's going to run off the side of the board. Just a little bit, maybe a little dripping back up to the pancake, just to give it a little dimension. Let's see, just a little bit more here. Doesn't take much resin to do this. But I think that's about it. So I'm not even sure if it took me the whole ½ ounce. But I can't tip it because I don't want my resin to run. But that is basically all you need to do to create this food board of realistic blueberry pancakes that you can give as a gift. You can hang it on your wall. These are fun to do. Lots of different food boards available, so you can make lots of different fake foods. You can use your imagination. But that's it for today. You'll be able to see in the thumbnail of the video here what it looks like when it's hanging up and all finished. So I will see you in the next video, and I hope you make some blueberry pancakes. This is Andy, the prop chef, saying bye for now.